Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, and good afternoon to all participants. A very warm welcome from Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia. I'm Architect Amy Roslan, a PAM Council member, the co-chairperson of PAM Membership Youth and Events Committee, and also the co-chair of the Promotion of the Profession Committee. I will be your MC as well as your moderator for today. I would like to welcome everyone to the Generative Design Seminar and Workshop Series, Empowering Architects and Designers through Generative Design. Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia, through the Membership Youth and Events Committee, is collaborating with Autodesk and 3D Tech in organizing today's webinar, which is today on the 10th of February. And there will be a follow-up physical workshop, which will be held on the 19th of February, 2022. So the details of this follow-up physical webinar, sorry, not webinar, it's going to be a physical workshop. Apologize for that. We will tell you the details later in the webinar. Yeah. So I'm pleased also to remind you that this lecture can be watched via PAM Facebook website, but do note that CPD point is not applicable for PAM Facebook Live platform. So if you wish to have your CPD points, kindly log into Zoom webinar by requesting the registration link by email to pamonlineseries@gmail.com. Okay, I repeat again, pamonlineseries@gmail.com. And before we begin, allow me to read out some house rules, yeah, for this technical talk. Okay, number one, on the attendance policy, the sign in and the sign out code will pop out on your screen, like what you can see on the screen right now, for about 20 minutes. Sorry, every 20 minutes, it's going to be pop out every once and then. What you have to do, okay, is that you need to write down, copy, memorize the code, okay, and to fill out the questionnaire form that will be projected on the screen at the end of the webinar. Okay, so just remember, copy, screenshot, whatever you want to do with the code. Also, we're pleased to remind you, simply clicking the poll do not indicate you have signed in or signed out. Okay. Okay, house rule number two. Any form of screen recording, sharing, reproducing any content of this lecture in audio or writing is strictly prohibited. Okay, this is due to in respect to the legitimate rights of Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia, PAM, Autodesk, 3D Tech, as well as our respective panels. Okay, so no recording, yeah? It is illegal. All right. Anyway, if you have questions along the way, whether on the technical issues or, you know, regarding CPD, whatever that you want to message me as your moderator, or perhaps you have later questions to the panel during the Q&A session. So please type your question in the chat box. Okay. Another thing, do wait until the end of our session, as there will be an announcement of our lucky draw winners who will be given 50 ringgit worth of Touch and Go e-wallet credit. Okay, I would love to have this one. A branded wireless headphone worth 750 ringgit. I would love to have this one as well. And a Braun electric toothbrush worth 250 ringgit. I would also love to have this one, but unfortunately, I'm in the moderator team. There's a conflict of interest, so I'm not qualified. Anyway, to officiate the webinar, I would like to invite the Vice President of Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia, Architect Alvin Lim Hai Sia. So please welcome Architect Alvin Lim Hai Sia to the screen.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Salam sejahtera. Good afternoon to all the attendees of the webinar. A warm festive greeting to everyone celebrating the Lunar New Year. Firstly, I would just like to thank MYE Committee, MYE Chairperson, Architect Alice Leong, Co-Chairs, Architect Amy Roslan, Architect Shafiq Kamaruzaman, for inviting me to officiate this event. I understand that this event is a collaborative effort between MYE and Autodesk with 3D Tech to organize the Generative Design Seminar and Workshop Series. On behalf of PAM, I would like to thank Autodesk for partnering with PAM to bring us this informative event. We hope that this will be a start where Autodesk will partner PAM in more collaborative efforts, especially in efforts to make BIM tools and solutions affordable and easily accessible to all our membership. The topic of today's seminar is the Introduction of Computational and Generative Design. With architects traditionally relying on intuition and experience to explore a design problem, this topic today will allow us to explore relatively new methods of design for architecture, namely computational design and generative design. And we hope the knowledge gained today will empower architects and designers attending the seminar a better method to resolve our increasingly complex design problems. Without further ado, I would like to pass this platform back to the MYE co-chair, Architect Shafiq Kamaruzzaman, for his opening remarks. Before I take leave, I would like to congratulate MYE for a job well done in organizing this well-received seminar, and thank you very much to everyone for your support for another successful PAM event. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Architect Alvin Lim. Hi, Sia. Okay, hold on, Architect Shafiq.
Yeah.
All right, so next I would like to invite my fellow co-chairperson of the PAM Membership Youth and Events Committee, Architect Shafiq Kamaruzzaman, to give the opening remark. So please welcome Architect Shafiq to the screen.
Thanks, Aimin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And thanks to Alvin also for your introduction. So I'm just going to make it very quick. I think maybe for the benefit of those listening new to PAM and the way that we are set up, I think just to give a bit of explanation and background in terms of the committees. So, you know, PAM is actually the Local Architects Institute, obviously, and we actually have within the institute, we have a series of committees. So this particular committee, which Aimee and myself co-chair together with our chair lady, Alice, who unfortunately could not make it this afternoon, is MYE, as you know, and MYE stands for Membership, Youth and Events, which is I think quite self-explanatory, and which explains why we're here today with Aimee having organized this I think very beneficial event. So I would like to maybe say thank you to Aimee for helping to organize this together with Autodesk, and I don't want to sort of drag this out too long. I also am looking forward to the webinar and the contents of the event. So on that note, I think thank you to everyone who is attending. I hope I have maybe clearly given you a kind of a understanding context in terms of where we are, and I pass it back to Aimee to just carry on with this event. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Architect Shafiq Kamaruzzaman. A bit of introductory to computational and generative design before I pass the floor to our panel today. Imagine that you have a complex design problem to solve. Okay, the goals are well defined, but some of those goals compete with one another. You do understand the constraints and the inputs that you can control. You have a few ideas, but they will take time to develop. What if you miss the best idea because you don't have time to explore that far? So this is where generative design helps. In a generative design process, you specify the goals, constraints, and inputs. Then you leverage the power of the computer to generate lots of design alternatives quickly and to evaluate this alternative against the defined goals. The result is a set of alternatives that help you to meet your design goals. And I quote, this one is from Autodesk. Okay, so according to Autodesk, okay, generative design is a design exploration process. Designers input design goals into the generative design software, along with the parameters such as performance or special requirements, materials, manufacturing methods, and cost constraints. The software explores all the possible permutations such as, of a solution, quickly generating design alternative. It tests and learns from each iteration what works and what doesn't. So this webinar is one of the platforms to learn how you can use generative design to generate and explore design alternative to your design challenges. Okay, and next one, I will introduce our speaker of today. Okay, our speaker is Mr. Samuel Macalister. So Mr. Macalister is a building information modeling BIM architect and solutions engineer for the architecture, engineering, and construction team for Autodesk based in Sydney. So he focuses on building design workflows for analysis, simulation, and construction using Autodesk Building Information Modeling, which is BIM technology. So prior to joining Autodesk in January 2011, Samuel worked in the design and construction industry as BIM architect in London, in the United Kingdom, and also in Auckland, New Zealand. He has worked with several highly noted firms, including HOK and BDP in London, designing residential, educational, and healthcare projects. Hence, I welcome Mr. Samuel Macalister to the screen and hope everyone will enjoy our webinar today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Amy. Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. I will share my screen to get started. Is that coming through okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. So today I'll be doing an introduction to generative design. We'll start with the basics and then I'll be showcasing some examples at the end to show you how the solution can help you in your architectural process. We're calling this presentation the generative generation. Basically, in my day, a lot of people came out of university with AutoCAD skills. These days, more and more architectural graduates are understanding generative design and using it in their design process. A quick who am I? I like to show visuals to better explain who I am and what I've done. I've been using the platform now for over 25 years, and that's the Autodesk platform. So AutoCAD back in 1996. Back in the days before Revit, before generative design, we had AutoCAD, but we also had 3D tools like 3ds Max or 3ds Max Design, which comes in the Aec Collections. And this is how I represented my student work back in Auckland, New Zealand. As Amy mentioned, I've worked in New Zealand and the UK and now in Australia. I was fortunate enough to be designing residential projects and educational projects in New Zealand with some fantastic sites like this in the Bay of Islands for Jasmax Architects. I spent almost 10 years in the UK working for several firms. This one at RMJM Architects was one of the first projects I got to work on, which was a learning resource center up in Sheffield in the United Kingdom, based partially on the aesthetic of Neil Denari. I also was a big fan of skateboarding when I was a student, so subconsciously part of this building was designed for skateboarders to abuse their architecture. My first stepping stone into building information modeling was on the University of Cambridge, so Cambridge University, one of the famous ones in the UK, where we were designing a medical research council facility, which had a huge amount of services in the design. Now, before Revit had become mainstream, we used what was called Autodesk Architectural Desktop, ADT, which is now called Autodesk Architecture. And the key benefit of moving from 2D to 3D, working with the mechanical engineers, allowed us to actually look at the configuration of the services for the design and make better informed decisions on the design aesthetics. So over here on the left, you'll see two options for the wings of this building. One is the traditional services housed on the roof. The other one is the option we went for, which is the services housed on the side of the building in these organic sculptural containers. This project was eventually done in Revit. And here's an example of the detail that went into the model for the laboratories. You can see that all the elements were modeled. So all the sockets, all the gas supply, all the extractors. We can get right down into the detail of this model and look at the laboratory tables as well in Revit, where you can start to use the displaced parts to actually look at the assembly of these laboratory table components. Also, I work for HOK. HOK were very progressive with building information modeling. Back in the mid-2000s, there was some pretty exciting projects to work on. This is in Baku on the near Azerbaijan, where we got to design the flaming towers. We also were doing hybrid Revit and ADT models. This one was a project in the City of London, which involved the use of BIM to carefully work out the structure and the cores for a mixed-use residential. What is key here for anybody who has gone through designing structure and cores is the model had to displace a lot of loads over existing building components, and then we had to twist the cores to get the fire egress to work. So 3D modeling really helped this design process. The last project I was fortunate enough to work on is a healthcare project in New Brighton, south of London. This was using the process called Design for Manufacturing and Assemblies. So this building information model, Design in Revit, was actually designed to meet the LOD 400 requirement of having all the precast panels in the model, which was then exported to the manufacturer's factory and used via the IFC process to fabricate the panels and then ship them to site. I'm also very passionate about things like sustainability. I worked on several competitions when I was in London for the ROBA. My claim to fame at Autodesk is I got to design the sample house that actually ships with Revit. This is the original design. The one that you open in Revit is a little bit different, but this is the design intent. And I'm a regular speaker at Autodesk University, where I've done several presentations on several Autodesk platforms. And in my spare time, I like to help out other communities with pro bono work. In 2020, I worked on designing an eco-friendly city in Ghana made out of composite bamboo blocks. And last year, worked with a team in Canada, Denmark, and Spain on an orbital farm in New Mexico. For anybody who recognizes the site, this is where the Virgin Galactic Space Aviation Center is. We were developing a special vegetation farm to harvest the sun and grow leafy vegetables. Ideally, this concept could be used for the colonization of Mars. So, that's the intro, and just to set the scene, the benefits or the challenges that we have in architecture is we've been working long hours and the deadlines just seem to get shorter and shorter. We want to move into using tools that will automate some of those mundane manual processes. Now, this also happens in other parts of industries that Autodesk supplies software to, like manufacturing. This particular shot here is the automation of a drone encasement here, over here on the right on the desk, where you can do generative design to iterate the design to make it as strong as possible, and then 3D print that drone structure. The history of architecture, for those of us who are old enough, we started on the drawing board. We would work on butter paper with pencils and rotating pens, and we'd feed paper into a die line machine to make blueprints. There was a lot of craft involved in being the artisan of the architect. Then over numerous years, we've moved into computer-aided drafting, CAD. Now, this became more mainstream in the 80s, but it actually goes right back to 1957, where CAD, the birth of CAD started, and then more progressive industries like the automotive industry or maybe the military industry would start using this technology. So from 1980 to 1999, computer-aided drafting was big. A lot of firms would move into it, probably mainly in the 90s. And by the year 2000, everybody was off the drawing board, more or less. 2000 to 2019 was building information modeling. So Revit was developed in 1998. Autodesk acquired it in the early 2000s, and it started to become mainstream around about 2010 for a lot of big international firms. We now move into the next evolution of computer-generated design. This is the 2020 to 2039. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get into outcome-driven design using generative design. These little screenshots down the bottom here is one of our newer softwares that's going to be leveraging generative design. This is called SpaceMaker. It's not available everywhere just yet, but again, it's going to be the next evolution of Autodesk software, automating the design process, starting to leverage AI-powered design. There's about 9 different real-time analysis features in it, and it's going to be connecting into a lot of our building information modeling platforms. So the challenges we're trying to address here for architects is project complexity. It doesn't get any easier. The more we go and design more complex, exciting buildings, work with new materials, different constraints, but at the same time, we want to have a decent profitability. So you really got to start to look at the scope, the variation, the team you're going to put on that project, and whether you're going to be working with other collaborators with expertise. There are inefficiencies with the resourcing on some of these projects. You'll have one team maybe working on SketchUp and AutoCAD, then another team having to rebuild things in Revit. Things aren't connected, things don't talk to each other, certain teams can't fulfill certain responsibilities on the project. The decision-making isn't as efficient as what it could be. We do have complex systems, the project goals change, not everybody understands them. And then finally, what's happening is there are changes with the expectations, especially from governments. The UK mandated building information modeling in 2016. Not many other places in the world have actually committed to that. There's new ways of fast tracking how you deliver that project. Whether you hand over the data, a lot of us will still just deliver PDF files, but more and more governments are wanting to use that data. What does it mean to the architect from a legality point of view? If you hand over an information model, are you liable for that data versus handing over a PDF? The trends that we've been starting to see over the years, especially during the pandemic, is diverse project teams. So people working from home, people working in different locations, offshoring workflows. We are now very much a mobile workforce. We're now needing to look at how we can use these emerging design technologies to speed up the workflow. So automation, form generation, working with design constraints is what you'll see in our SpaceMaker products, working with site constraints, and then moving into machine learning, which is going to be a big thing for us. Another big goal are the commitments for 2025, 2030, 2050 for some countries is being more sustainable. How do we look at how our building is going to perform? How do we look at embodied carbon in the materials? How do we look at transportation on the materials from the factory to the site? All of these things are becoming really important for architects. And then finally, the responsibilities. So a lot of this in the UK. Here in Australia and in parts of New Zealand, there is still the design, bid, build procurement route. In the UK, it is design and build for a lot of the government projects. There's also a trend to move into IPD procurement, where everybody has an ownership or a liability around the data that's going out. So a lot of this is changing. Now, how do these tools actually help you as an architect? Like, how do you make sure that with those fees dropping or getting tighter and tighter, and the time scale getting shorter and shorter, how do you ensure that you make a profit margin? So for these fixed fee projects, if you can negotiate an hourly rate and the client will keep paying that, that's fantastic, but most of the times there's a fee scale and it's a sliding scale depending on the size and scope of the project. So you want to be able to negotiate at the front end with that fixed fee, lock it in, agree the scope works, and then use these tools, these new generative design tools, to be more efficient. The idea is to automate a number of tasks and add value to the process, so at the end of the day you can end up with a better profit margin, not spending 8 hours setting up a sheet in Revit, not spending 2 days planning out an interior, using these tools to really be efficient and making sure you're not spending extra money on resources and losing that fee profit. So an example of this, if we look at a couple here, this one for geometry authoring, this is a 1 hour workflow that can be done in 1 minute by Artem Bioko. There's a LinkedIn learning course on this. When using Revit on its own, it will take 1 hour to do like this portal frame, shed type project. If you go and use the script and run it with all the components using Excel tables with some of the data, and then going into more advanced workflows with Python or IronPython, you can generate this information within 1 minute. Another example here is a local colleague of mine. I used to work with Paul Winter at HOK. He runs a company here called Parametric Monkey. He's been working on scripts not only to drive more complex geometry, but also using Dynamo Player to work on the documentation. So instead of having to set up sheets or change text from lowercase to uppercase manually, he has all these fantastic scripts which you can access, and it will allow you to reduce the time doing these things, these manual things on an architectural project. So 10 hours, he's got some calculations here for the fee scale here in Australia. He can save $670 by just using these scripts to automate some of these workflows. So moving into the design evolution, we've gone from 2D black and white or blueprints into printing in color, producing in color, sketching in color. We've gone from DOS or a Windows-based keyboard environment to using a point and shoot mouse. The Apple computer, of course, took this from Fujitsu back in the day. This Windows-based interface where you can see what you're doing, you can use the mouse, and you can point and shoot, and you can draw. So we're moving from these hand sketch lines, these drafted lines, to using intelligent tools that look at X, Y, Z coordinates. Vector, of course, being CAD, point A to point B, and then the shortest distance between point A and point B for that vector-based graphics. And then moving into design automation for 3D modeling. So this simple example on the screen is just a visual interface script that drives the height and the side of this box. This is the simplest as it gets. It doesn't have to be overwhelming or daunting. Simply, you can grab these sliders and drive the geometry without having to model it or remodel it or make adjustments to the actual geometry like you would in a 3D platform. Behind this visual interface is this type of code or this type of calculation. So the box equals cuboid, dot by lengths, 223 parts of the box. It's simple. When you look at this interface, the slider interface, and then this is the code behind it. Now, these type of tools are not trying to take away the fun of being an architect, doing that fun design concept. It's just replacing those repetitive tasks, those manual tasks that are not the most fun in architecture. So it replaced tasks, not creative jobs. So this is an overview of the generative design framework. Now, you want to be able to use these scripts that are set up to work for the different type of outcome-driven design that you're aiming for. So whether it be solar analysis or furniture layout or facade design, you would always work with this pre-generative design script. You would load that into your Revit environment. You would generate that script against an object. Then from there, you can evaluate it. So the script is going to do the heavy lifting. Then it will allow you to evaluate, is this design cool? Is it not cool? Does it meet our requirements? You can then tweak the information and then rerun it again to evolve that script. And then finally load it into your design environment and then post it into your model. It's your post generative design outcome. Now, this does involve data input. So not everybody has to be a generative design expert. You can work with some of these graduates from the generative generation to help you input the data into your script and then connect it to the parts like the shapes that you want to work with, and then start to look at how it's going to perform. And that could be a graphic performance or an analysis performance for like daylighting or solar analysis. And then finally, that design data will move into the project data. So we now move into, it's going to lose my voice. We move into the what. So these are some of the platforms which you can start using generative design on. The core one is Dynamo. So that's the engine, the raw engine that our tools leverage. We have Autodesk Format. If you haven't used Format, it's like Sketchup. It's a push-pull modeling tool, but it leverages Dynamo to do some of the heavy lifting. So if you're doing stairs or railings or facade designs, it will do it for you, or even build a city model for you. And then the third one is Revit. So from Revit 2021, in the Aec Collections, you're getting access to the Generative Design for Revit workflow. So Dynamo here, it's a visual scripting engine. These have a whole lot of different types of nodes and wires connecting them to do certain things. You can use it with other software or not use other software. If you just want to generate designs within the actual Dynamo interface, you can do that. You can reach out to a broad community of users. There's a lot of people out there who will provide different scripts and help you with scripts. You can run it in a standalone sandbox mode, or you can plug it into other software. So Revit, yes, but also even Civil 3D. I've seen people doing a lot of bridges like the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and more recently, the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, using Dynamo to design it. For Format, so you can work with these push-pull tools, but it has a very simple native Dynamo integration where you don't need to be an expert to use it. It will also integrate into the full building information workflow. It can work with real-world site information, and there's all these different analysis tools which you can use it for as well. The Aec Collection has the full Generative Design for Revit with the newer interface. This is where you can explore all these different alternatives in a complex design problem. You've got tools at the very beginning to start to specify the goals for your outcome-driven design. You can set up the constraints, so what rooms you're going to be working in and the inputs, or what geometry is going to be connecting to. It will quickly go through and do all these different design alternatives for you, and it will rank the different results for you. In fact, depending on how ambitious you want to be, you can do thousands of design options using this platform. So Dynamo, it's a visual programming application, wide variety of applications, existing exciting applications you can use it with. It does go a lot further into other things like Python or IronPython. It has been out for a while. We do have a a website called dynamobim.org, which has a lot of information on getting started with Dynamo. However, this might not be for everybody. Like, you might want to start up with the Revit or the formal workflows. If you're passionate, if you get hooked on Dynamo, what you'll find is there are a lot of user groups around the world. There's one here in Sydney, but you can see they're in San Francisco, Seattle, Philadelphia. So there's a lot of passionate users out there. Here in Australia, one of our larger architecture accounts, Hassel Architects, are heavily using it. They're using it in this case study for a stadium design. So they've been using building information modeling for about 20 years. Here to do the walkway, this is Michael Ruhr, the BIM manager in the Perth office of Hassel. Here they use the Generative Design tool to actually work out the effects for the walkway, along with many other programs like Navisworks and 3ds Max. If you want to get started with the platform, we have the Primer site as well. So there is the standard dynamobim.org, but we also have a Primer site. And what you'll find is a lot more information about the bigger picture on how this platform is used. Format is going to be the easiest one for anybody to learn how Dynamo actually integrates with the geometry. Format it's push and pull, but it has a number of scripts embedded within it, and you can load in more scripts. It also saves out as an AXM file to the cloud or locally, which can be loaded into Revit. It has an insight tool, so you can start to look at solar analysis on the facade of your design. It will even look at the radiation at certain times of the month or over the year if your facade is east or west facing. It also allows you to quickly share that information out to a client or even connect into visualization platforms like Lumion. The great thing here is it's conceptual design with conceptual design analysis. So when you go to set up Format, you can pick a site. It has information on that site, like the weather information, so orientation towards the sun, and also weather station information, where the winds are coming from. You can quickly knock up a design. You can start to look at EUI information to see how it's going to perform. You also have data that it pulls down from the cloud, like the aerial image, and you can run the solar analysis tool here in the bottom right to see the radiance on the facade of that design. To get started on Format, we also have a Format Primer website, and there's a great example of the famous Farnsworth House, already modeled in Format. There's a dozen tutorials here. You can download them, and there is some self-paced learning for you to use this modeling tool, and ideally move on from just doing push and pull modeling to leveraging Dynamo scripts. So Revit now leverages the Generative Design for Revit. It did used to be called Project Refinery, and we had that in beta, and we had some selected users already using it. We now have this fully integrated into Revit. So while you're working in Revit, if there are things that you want to automate, whether it be modeling geometry, manual tasks, or documentation, the Generative Design for Revit tool will help you do this. This is Jasmax Architects. This is a firm that I used to work for in New Zealand. They're early adopters of this technology. So before Generative Design for Revit became part of the package, part of the Aec Collection, we were working with Jasmax on Project Refinery. Project Refinery. It used to be called Project Fractal, then it was Project Refinery, then it became Generative Design for Revit. So what we have is them going one step further with the application to connect it into Revit and Power BI. And what was really cool here, these screenshots, this is the script allowing them to work out the percentages of a mixed-use residential, retail, office design. So they can use these scripts, and if you want to know more about this, they have a website called jazzmaxdigitalinnovation.com. They can use these scripts to pick a site and then set in certain parameters and then lay out the units for them. And then for the partners or the directors of that firm, they can get instant feedback on how those designs are going to meet the project program or the project brief. This other one here is from the Paul Winter, the Parametric Monkey website. Again, I encourage you to check this out. He has some great tools just for starting up your project, creating work set sheets, 3D work set views, automation of your documentation, all this stuff that maybe might not be that fun in Revit. He has these scripts to speed this up for you, right through to management of the data and analysis. Here in Australia and New South Wales, we need to work to SEP 65 calculations for daylight for multi-residential apartment buildings. He has some great tools to show you how Autodesk software can support that regulation or that code. Another case study here is from Stammer. So they are a retail designer. Again, this doesn't have to be for big companies. You don't have to be an SOM or an HOK or a Gensler to use the software. This is a fit out of a liquor store. Basically, with this script, they just draw the walls in Revit. They have a room area, and then they can run that script to place all the shelves on the wall, the display cases, the location of the cash register, etc. It will do 40 different design options within minutes as opposed to half a day or an evening. To get started, we do provide a number of free downloads here. So this is what was called the Refinery Primer. It's now moved into the Generative Design Primer. Here, you'll see in the selection tree sample workflows, there are probably about a dozen sample workflows and growing, where it will tell you how to use the script, how to download it, and then use it potentially in any workflow you want. Now, I'll take you through the how and show you some of those scripts in action. So first, to get started, if you have a collection or you're lucky enough to work for a company that has an enterprise agreement with Autodesk, you can get access to the Generative Design for Revit. So this is the new license that we set up for it. When you go to use it, you will have the option to create a study. Now, out of the box, there's about half a dozen studies already embedded within Revit for it. You can load more studies in here. So for your firm, let's say you've got 20 scripts that you want to use for your schools, for your hospitals, for multi-residential healthcare. You can load them in here, and whenever they go to fire up to do a study, these will be available. So these are just the ones from the included sample content, but you can go and add study types down here. There's a hyperlink showing you how to do it. We have the inputs here. So this is moving into what you want to actually select and work with. So the simple example before was like the liquor store from Stammer. All you're doing here is you're selecting a room, and then you're selecting a bit of furniture to optimize in that room. Now, there are numerous different study types. You can randomize, you can optimize. All of these can be worked out. You can add different variables. You can set goals. Again, we're working towards an outcome-driven design. When you're ready to run these, you hit generate, and it will go and generate different design options for you to evaluate. So you'll see this splash screen come up. Now, you don't have to go and do thousands of options to get started. Maybe just start off with 10. There's an option down the bottom on how many options you can choose from. So don't choose 10,000, go for maybe 10 or 20. And what this will do is it will go and generate all these layouts for you. So if you're doing educational work and you need to look at ideas for how you can lay out desks, but you also need to look at views to the outside, you need to look at spacing between those desks to get the chairs in, or fire egress, etc. This will do it for you. And then you can go through and filter to the ones that you want to use. So these are the outcomes you can explore. These are the goals that your design is meeting. And then when you're ready, you can choose one of these and generate the Revit elements. So this will load them into the model. Now, a couple of things just to note here. This is different types of access. So for some reason, if it doesn't work for you, you may get this pop up. So you just got to make sure that you're logged in. Everything is working on the cloud these days, or pinging the cloud. So just make sure that you're logged in when you come to use this feature. And for anybody who really wants to get into the more advanced part of it, you can jump into the Dynamo interface. So don't be overwhelmed by Dynamo. You can actually go from the Revit Generative Design interface into Dynamo and start to tweak some of these scripts. So let's say you've gone and tweaked them to suit your business or to suit your design that you might be doing for a commercial office fit out. You can then go and export that particular script for use in your business. You can tweak those examples to create new logic. Finally here, this is just a little bit of under the hood. Now, you do want to manage this information. So ideally, give it a name. You might want to have like a little thumbnail image so people can sort of visually see what it is. You also want to have this replicated and housed in the document location of your PC. So just make sure it's there. So when Revit fires up and goes to look for it, it goes to the default location. And you can choose to keep that data cached or clear it out. So a little bit of the back end, but it's very simple stuff once you go through it and do it. So yeah, finally here, this is just the experience you're going to get by using that Dynamo option. You still can start to connect that Dynamo tool with Generative Design for Revit. But you've just got to start to look at how you're going to be selecting information within that model. And again, it will work with it, but there's a couple of little tweaks here. So just to clarify, this is if you're using the older version of Dynamo, Refinery, or Fractal to use this tool. So if you're not on the Generative Design for Revit workflow that comes in the Aec collections, this is the workaround to connect it via the Dynamo application. But there's a few notes here in terms of what you can and can't do. We have 14 languages supported by Revit. So it's not just all in English, it has different characters and languages available. And like everything, all of this information is available. You're supported within the Revit help. It takes you through different types of topics. And what you will see in the Generative Design primer are some examples of other companies who are using more advanced workflows of this platform. This is a screenshot of Van Wijnen. They're a developer in Holland, and they're master planning out their residential units here and reporting back on which ones get the most sunlight, the better views, and more profitability. Okay, so 5 examples here we're going to go through is the building massing, solar radiation, workspace layout, views of desks, windows, avoiding columns, and then finally an artificial lighting study. Okay, so building massing here, we want to create a study. So it's very simple. You have these scripts available with your application. You have certain parameters you want to embed. You can see there's a site envelope here. We've got a certain percentage or a certain floor height ratio for the retail space, a certain height for the tower, what is going to be meeting our criteria. We can go through these sliders and filter through to the one that meets all our criteria. And then when we're happy, we hit generate Revit elements, and you'll see at the end there, so we've got a little massing site envelope. At the end here, we've generated it, and it's loaded those floor plates with the correct ratio into the design. It's orientated the building, but it still fits within that site envelope and still has the right ratio of retail at the ground floor. Another more advanced one. This is for solar analysis. And basically with this script, you can select your model. So maybe you've got a massing model here and you want to analyze the facade depending on a certain day and time of the year. You can use that script and run it here in Dynamo, and you can visually see where the solar radiation is going to be more affecting the building. You can then export this to Generative Design. So this is the workflow if you're just using Dynamo and you want to connect it to Generative Design as opposed to the Generative Design for Revit that comes in the Aec collections. So here we've exported that script and we're starting to generate. And now we have options, and we can start to review the details of those options. So the outputs, the inputs, we can also graphically lay them out and see which one is meeting our outcome-driven design goals. We can also change that graphical output, that reading, to this type of display. So this is looking at all the facades. You can reduce the count of outputs here by going and clicking on these filters and then dropping it down a little bit to get a reduced number. This one is a really easy one. This is placing furniture within a space. So again, like the office or the school example, you want to look at optimizing the amount of desks you can get in the space, but maybe you want to do something a bit more interesting, like orientate them differently, make sure that everybody in those desks will get a view, but also you've got space for the chairs to back into each other, walkway space, and access to the doors for fire egress. All of this can be done very quickly using the design automation tool, and you can start to either work with the different types of filters or the graphical output to see which one is meeting your design criteria. So as we select over those in the graph, we can see the thumbnail of those designs. We create Revit elements, and it goes and lays out those designs in your building information model. This one looks at views to the outside. So we have a boardroom meeting table, we have some columns, we have some windows, we have some partitioning walls, and we want to look at if we're going to achieve those views. So we can select the elements that might be blocking the views. We can run the Generative Design tool, and what it's doing here is it's moving the desk, or the location of the object we chose to be the desk where we're going to be sitting, to see which ones are going to hit all the views. So this is a very simple example, but you could imagine using this on a more advanced project to see, well, how many views you're going to get. Like a healthcare project where in some cases, every single room needs to have some sort of view to the outside world. So you can use these tools in numerous ways on your project to do very quickly automated studies. The final one here looks at artificial lighting. So this is where we look at certain illuminance values that we want to meet. We want to be able to lay out those line fittings in our design and then ensure that we can illuminate the space accordingly. So you'll see here the options for the lighting locations. We also have points on the floor, like light meters, to actually measure that information. And this will start to tell us what might be the best lighting solution for this particular office layout. So with that, those are just the 5 examples. Most of these are available on our website. Again, it is the generativedesign.org. You can go down to the sample workflows and download a number of these for free to use in your architectural building information modeling workflows. And with that, I will stop sharing and we can move into some Q&A.
Okay, thank you for your wonderful presentation, Mr. Samuel. Okay, let's see if we have questions. If for all our participants, please type in the chat box if you have any questions for Mr. Samuel while he's here.
I see there's one for downloading free models. Yeah, we do provide, Amy's answered that, we do provide the sample workflows. And for anybody wanting to check out some of the new stuff, there is a community site as well. So if I just share my screen again, just to show you what that is. So these are some of the sample workflows that I just showed. So there are architectural workflows. So these are all available here. You also have the solar analysis one that I showed. But I would also check out here in the sample workflows community examples. And what you'll find here is passionate users starting to provide more advanced daylight analysis tools here. So you can see something like this would be handy. There's another one here that looks at orientation of furniture. Another one here that's looking at views from a bathroom. So yeah, check this out. There'll be more added as we go and grow this platform. And if you're a passionate user, please share some of your projects here for others to learn from.
Okay, we have questions. Okay, the first question, yeah, for of course for our panel, Mr. Samuel. In your opinion, why is generative design is such a game changer in the industry?
Well, the big thing is it's going to reduce those manual tasks. So you want to be able to leverage these scripts to automate the stuff that you would be doing that's repetitive. So setting up sheets or changing lowercase to uppercase, just simple things that add up and take all your time away from design. You could leverage these scripts and we'll do all the heavy lifting for you. So instead of working your weekends to 4 in the morning, unless you really like that, these scripts will help speed up your work and give you more time to be a creative architect.
Okay, thank you for the answer. All right, so we have the next question. Okay, how will the role of an architect in the construction industry change with the use of this generative design? As you know, in the past, not just for the past, but at the current moment, when we have machineries, artificial intelligence are taking over the role of human in terms of production and the jobs. So what is your opinion about this?
Well, the whole idea, where we're going with machine learning and AI, the idea is it's going to be taking what you've done on previous jobs, learning from it, and then guiding you on the next job. Sometimes when we go to, redesign another building, we feel like we're starting from scratch. But if you could use machine learning, like let's say you're doing schools and there are certain grids and cores and bathroom layouts and stair designs that you previously used, ideally you could leverage those scripts to reuse it to automate those things for you. Maybe there's a randomized facade design that you just love to use. Again, you could use that again and again and again, not start from scratch. And the other thing to know in terms of being an architect and working for a client, your client wants to see value from you, right? If you go to a meeting and show 3 options, they're going to go, okay, well, I'm going to pay you your fee, but you've only given me 3 options. What if you went to a meeting with 100 options and then gave the client the invoice? They're going to go, okay, great. Well, you've done 100 options. I feel like, you've earned your fee. So I think this is really going to help the architects sell more value to the clients and potentially win more work. If you go in there with 100 options versus 3 options, the client might think you're a harder worker and appoint you for the next stage of the project.
Okay. All right. That's an extension to that question, actually. Aside from the architect, because architect is known as the lead consultant in the construction industry. So what about the existing those who are working for the architects, like the technical assistants or the draftsmen, since this AI is actually taking over their job, actually can be done by a solo architect rather than previously we had probably 50 in the office of doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think drafting or going through the process of producing sheets or annotation or dimensioning and all those things that tend to feel a bit laborious. These sort of tools are going to help speed that up and allow people to do more with less. Unless people really enjoy that. I know in some parts of the world, certain design architects love producing sheets and love the graphical nature of the symbols that represent how the building is going to go together. But the whole idea here is that you can speed up that workflow and not be doing the what I would see as the dull side of the business to get that documentation out. Probably the other thing to note here is it reduces the risk if you've ever been working on a project till 6 in the morning. And drawings have to go out, especially if they're construction documentations or packages. If you're tired and those drawings have gone out and there are errors in those drawings, there can be major problems on site. So using these tools ideally will reduce the risk because they're automated, they're not going to get tired, they're not going to make mistakes, and it will mean you're not working till 6 in the morning.
Okay, thank you for the answer. All right, we have questions from Seong Wei Chung. Is generative design available on Autodesk format? Yes.
So when you go to Autodesk format, there is some built-in scripts, and you can bring in your own scripts or you can customize them in the package. But it's a fantastic tool because you can speed up the workflow. You can share those scripts with others. And there's even one that builds a city for you, which is really cool.
Okay, next question is from Afi Saiful. How does Dynamo and generative design workflow relate to each other?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Dynamo is the engine that drives the generative design. So just like there's rendering engines and civil rendering engines, you're not looking at the calculations and light balances of reflections and refractions, etc. You're just looking at the basic interface of the rendering settings and then running the rendering and doing your animation or VR. So likewise, generative design is that simple interface that allows you to just choose the things that you want for your outcome-driven design within the Revit interface. Dynamo is the engine behind it, supporting it. So for anybody who's new, like generative design inside of Revit is the easiest way to get started. But if you're wanting to tinker with the background settings, Dynamo is the engine that will help drive that. And Dynamo works with other applications as well.
Okay, Samuel, the next question from Dongmin Wong. Is there much difference between Dynamo and Grasshopper?
So they're both engines. So they're both engines that will work with different platforms. What I'd say is Grasshopper is a bit more mature. It's been out for a long time and it does have quite a lot of different nodes. They both do the same thing. And in some cases, they do talk to each other. But in essence, they're the same sort of thing with different strengths.
Okay. The following question comes from our Vice President, Architect Alvin Lim. Can perhaps explain the differences between the generative design and parametric design?
Yeah, that's a great question. So parametric design is working with a model which is fully connected, where you can extract your plan, sections, elevations, 3D views, and also scheduling from. Now, it's still a manual process to make that model. There's a few shortcut keys and ways you can speed up the workflow, but there's no automation. So you're still building stuff and then you're extracting your general arrangement drawings from it. Generative design is the tool that's going to automate that process. So instead of having to manually do something like that box example in the presentation, instead of having to manually do it, you're just going to use these sliders and it will generate it for you. So it's, one will do a bit of the heavy lifting. The other one, you've got a model, but because it's parametric, it's not like we used to do in the olden days. Create a plan, then rotate it or XREF it into another file, then generate an elevation off that plan, and then try and make a section and try and link it all together with reference planes. So yeah, parametric design is the full 3D model. Generative design is the tool that automates the process of that 3D model.
Okay, thanks for the answer, Samuel. Okay, we have in the attendees, Ke Kyung Chong. He raised his hand. Can I check with the technical team whether we can allow Kyung Chong, perhaps he would like to say something?
Sure.
Okay, if the technical team can't enable the feature for the attendees to speak on Zoom, or perhaps Ke Kyung Chong, if you don't want to type your question in the chat box and we shall read your question afterwards. Okay. All right. There's more questions for you, Samuel. Sorry for this.
That's great. That's great.
All right. There are actually quite many questions that we received. All right. The next question. Is there a website or any resources that I can use to get started with generative design? No, this one perhaps for beginners?
Yeah, probably the best thing would be the generative design, the Dynamo primer. And I'll just, so it's dynamobim.org. And I'll just share my screen so you can see it. So is that coming through okay?
Yes, it is.
So yeah, here is the original dynamo.bim. What you'll find is there's a wealth of information here, but quite simply, if you just go to the Learn tool, you'll find that there'll be here under there'll be a primer. This will be an introduction course for you to get up and running. So it just explains the concepts. Now, once you get up and running, it won't be as overwhelming as what you might think it is. It also has like the software and resources, so you can actually download Dynamo Studio and run it on its own. There's other things you can do with builds. You can get into like GitHub and start to adjust it. There is other different sites as well that are very helpful. So if I just went to Google, for example, and go learn Dynamo, there is a partner company or things like LinkedIn, but there's also here on our knowledge network more information as well. So we do try and put a lot of our stuff on our knowledge network or links from the knowledge network, but you'll find here Dynamo Primer, LinkedIn Learning. There's also all these different resources and links, and there's also the user group, or you know, Dynamo for Dummies. Autodesk University is one of the best places to learn. We used to do this live in Las Vegas. Now it's all online. It's all for free, and you can go here and you can watch the classes, and there'll be handouts and presentations to download for free. And this guy, Marcelo, he's been a speaker at Autodesk University for a long time. He has some great workflows here. So if anything that you want to take away from this presentation, I would strongly recommend check out the Autodesk University website. A lot of really powerful learning classes, all for free for yourselves. It was a long answer.
Okay, the next question from Ganesan Chalapan. Does Revit models can be combined with 3D Max software and Google Sketchup for rendering?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So 3ds Max is one of my favorite softwares. You can link in a live Revit model into 3ds Max and start doing renderings. You can use it, so whenever the Revit model changes, it can be reloaded and updated in 3ds Max, and you can produce more photorealistic cinema quality renders. SketchUp as well, you can bring in SketchUp files as a native SKP file format or an FBX, and that'll work, you know, perfectly fine in 3ds Max.
Okay, the next question from Wei Song Wang. Do you have an advice on how to start learning Dynamo? For architects who are looking to adopt Dynamo in their BIM practice, sometimes I personally felt like the learning process of Dynamo is rather ad hoc and problem solving when the issues arise, or that's the way to go to learn Dynamo?
We do have partners around the world who provide more bespoke training. If you're really wanting to get into it, it can be a bit overwhelming. I mean, if I just quickly share my screen again, for anybody just wanting to understand it from scratch here, this is Format, and Format allows you to leverage Dynamo scripts. Over here on the right is the Dynamo script tool, and there are tools to make louvers, panel grids, stairs, for example. So what I can do here, for example, and again, I don't pretend to be an awesome Dynamo user. Here, I can place that in my model. Now, this is by default running on American units. Now, again, I can move this to metric. So the panel width could be 4 meters, and the height of those panels, we could make them 3.2 meters. I'm just entering that and just run that. It's going to leverage the script and then change those panels for me. this is in its simplest way to just see the design automation working. So here we have those panels all done for me. Now, if I want to actually look at the actual Dynamo script, I can click on that, and this will fire Dynamo, and it will show you more how that script is put together. And again, I'm no Dynamo expert, but what you can do with some of these starter scripts is potentially reverse engineer how they go together. So at the moment, this is just looking at the facade here. So you can actually see the design inside a Dynamo, and then you can flick to the nodes and wires. And this is the script that drives it. So there's a lot going on, and we don't expect everybody to, know all of this from scratch. There is a lot of different tools in here, and once you want to look at searching for stuff, it will tell you of all the tools that are available. We are trying to develop it more into like a visual interface. So when you actually go and look at some of these tools, it will visually tell you what it's going to do. The other thing you have here is packages, which you can search for. So this is packages that are online, and you will find a number of packages which you can grab for free here to use in your workflows. And you can see there are a lot. So you can really start to do a lot with these tools. Again, all for free, available for you. You don't need to be that expert. You can start to leverage some of these, and you can see there's different, descriptions of it. The other one here in your generative design. So you can start to look, here in the generative design, this is when you do it from scratch in Dynamo and then launch Revit. This one here will also have a number of samples available for you. And then also the dictionary, should you want to know, what all these node names are, and then links to the Dynamo website. I'm going to see, is it going to take me to the samples? Maybe not, maybe I haven't got it built in just yet. So that's in essence just one way to get started. Personally, the format tool is really powerful, and there are numerous other tools here to explore. One of the ones is down the bottom here is a script that enables you to build a city. So here is the 3D context creator. You just need to set up your site location, and then just scale how big you want it to be, and it will go and build a city for you. Now, I won't do this all right now live, but I have built one of Singapore using this, and I'll be able to use these scripts to build up a design for me. So I'll just so here on the screen, here is a format model using the script that built up some of the city here. I have layers. So if you want to see not the terrain, satellite image, all of that is available there. And with this design to do the heavy lifting, I don't need to model all of these components. This, if you look at the properties of it, it's a script. Sorry, that's selecting not the. So these are all scripts in the model, and at the moment they're grouped, hence why the script's not showing. But when I go and grab that, again, this is a script doing all the heavy lifting for me. So this will be my recommendation to get up and running with it. You can very quickly design something and not have to be an expert or spend hours trying to learn it. It's only when you want to go further, you can go to edit that embedded graph and then learn from others online or work with a partner.
Okay, Samuel, that was an in-depth explanation. All right. Anyway, the next two questions I just received, actually, this one is a bit controversial, to be honest, and I think it is an open secret. Okay, so I start with the first part of the question. Yeah, for students when they want to get all these softwares, some of them they can get it for free, perhaps through the university. They show their students, student cards, etc. They got subsidized, in other words, perhaps from the Autodesk. To obtain the softwares, but do you have any form of subsidies that you give to business startups? New young architects who are just about to start a business.
I think for certain startups, there is a part of Autodesk that supports that. I'd probably need to double check exactly what the conditions are, because I believe it relates to like companies that are doing things that will make an impact to a community, or they could be sustainable technology. So I'll just, this is, here we go. This is the website, and it is the impact website. So it's not like, here's some free software just because you started a company. It needs to be supporting, non-profit or sustainable programs, etc. So you can go to the Autodesk.com sustainability, and you can start to look at education, and we do support, entrepreneurs, people wanting to get up and running.
Okay, that is something good to know, especially for the young architects, because to obtain the license, it is quite pricey, isn't it? Especially for a new business startup. Okay, the second part of the question, okay, this is the one which is a bit controversial. I think it is known even for your side, perhaps in Australia as well, that it is an open secret that people have been using Autodesk softwares, which are the pirated version. Okay, the fake version of Autodesk, softwares produced by Autodesk. So up to date, is there some sort of like legal actions taken by Autodesk, for instance, for all these, fake producers or fake users of these fake softwares?
It's a different department to what I'm in. So every region has a license compliance officer. And they do know who has pirated software, and they do try and work with customers to resolve the issue. I mean, nobody wants to go to court or go through litigation, or so they try and address it with mediation, and try and make sure that everybody, there's a win-win situation for everybody. So it's just one of those things, because for years, certain parts of the world have been pirating the software for a very long time, and now as we move more towards being a cloud company, the company wants to make sure that everybody is compliant with the legal terms and agreements.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Samuel. Let's see if we have more questions. Okay, there is one more question from Wei Song Wang. Okay, for the participants, for your information, our Q&A should end around 4:30. So you have 6 minutes left. If you have more questions, please pour in your questions to Mr. Samuel while he is here with us. Okay, question from Wei Song Wang. Is there an Autodesk software that can be used for evaluative purpose, especially as good pair with the generative softwares, for example, like Dynamo, Formit?
Most of our software has like a 30-day trial license. So the public can do that. If, for example, you're working in a larger practice, let's say everybody's using AutoCAD, and you've got a specialist team.
That's fantastic. Most of the time, a fee scale is by extent.
So it's playing back to me.
No, it's fine. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. It'd be good, like if you're working with a larger architecture firm, chances are you'll have a designated Autodesk account representative. I would encourage you to reach out to them and discuss with them what might be possible for longer evaluation terms. In some cases, they may be able to grant an extension to test some software. Now, this is just me verbally saying it. It varies depending on the account manager, but if you're serious about the software and you need more time to evaluate it, that may be possible.
Okay, thanks for the answer, Samuel. The next question. Aside from the construction industry, which is known to be actively using generative design at the moment, progressing very much, are there any other industries that use generative design as actively as us at the moment?
I would say definitely the manufacturing industry. And this looks more at optimizing the use of materials. So like one example I showed at the beginning was a 3D printed drone. It looked very organic and sculptural, but it was actually to do with weight, but also strength. Another example that we did a case study on a few years ago was for the interior fit out of Boeing airplanes. Again, it's all about weight. How can they make barriers or partitions in the plane that are strong, but also light? So using generative design, it will go through hundreds of options and then find the option that meets the strength criteria, but uses the least amount of materials. So if you're doing thousands of planes per year and all these partitions, imagine the amount of money you're going to save and the weight you're going to save for the airlines running the planes with the fuel, etc. It's going to improve their bottom line using generative design.
Okay, I think that was the last questions that we received from the participants. Okay, so I would like to thank Mr. Samuel Macalister. Thank you so much for answering all the questions, including the controversial ones, even though perhaps that is not directly under your department. But at least I think it will be beneficial for all of us here that at least we know that, you know, what things are okay, what is not okay, what are the consequences, as well as in terms of your effort, yeah, in terms of like sharing the screen so that we can actually see rather than hearing just things verbally. Okay, so thank you so much, Samuel. On behalf of Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia, I truly appreciate, I would like to express our appreciation for you to come in and on behalf of Autodesk as well to speak in to all of our attendees, participants today. Okay. Any last advice from Mr. Samuel Macalister for those who are just about to enter this generative design or just about to start to explore this sort of field in architecture?
I would be looking at what others are doing in the community and following what's happening at Autodesk in terms of its research program. We do have some new tools coming in, and for anybody who wants to see what the latest and greatest is, I'll just bring this up. We have some really cool stuff happening on the website, and you can go there, view some of the new things. So just here on this website, this is the future of making, and what you'll find are projects which include generative design and other really cool new things. So this one here, you know, bio-computational evolution, if you want to check that out, you know, more advanced computational design. And then this one here, if you want to see this just being used for an office fit out, we have the Autodesk Mars project. It's not a building on Mars. It is the Silicon Valley of Canada. It's a certain district where we have our learning and research office, and they actually use generative design. Oops, it's disappeared. Generative design to lay out the building. So there's a lot more on this. Looks like the link's just broken for today, but I would encourage anybody wanting to know the future of Autodesk to check out this page, because there's a lot of really cool things to check out. And for architecture, if you're a fan of MoMA in New York, there's this manufactured bricks going on here, and there's some really cool research on this as well. So probably not enough time to go over it all tonight.
Okay, thanks so much, Samuel. Okay, the next part of our webinar today is going to be the announcement. Okay, before the announcement of the Lucky Draw winner, we're going to do the announcement of the physical workshop that Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia is going to conduct, okay, together with Autodesk and the 3D Tech. Okay, so this workshop is going to be held on the 19th of February 2022. Okay, on Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is going to be free for PAM members, but there will be a small fee for non-members, which is 50 ringgit. Okay, so there will be two sessions. So session number 1, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Session number 2, 2 to 6 p.m. It will be held at level 5 and 6 at PAM Center, of course, our institute. Okay, however, the seats are actually only limited to 20 seats only. So do get yourself registered as soon as possible. Okay, you can scan the QR code, or you can see the link and type on your browser to register for your participation in the coming workshop. Okay, all right, so the next part, okay, the announcements of the Lucky Draw winners. Okay, let's see. So there will be 30 Lucky Draw winners, and there will be 2 special prize. So I will announce the 30 Lucky Draw winners for the Touch and Go e-wallet voucher with the amount of 50 ringgit. First one, Mr. Afi Saiful, Mr. Ding Kwan Siang, Mr. Chai Si Yong, okay, Wong Siu Ling. Number 5 is Liu Yingjie. Number 6, Chao Tek Chi. Congratulations. Number 7, Jason Xia, Miss Nur Eliza Muhammad Nasir, Ng Zian Lung, Teh Buang Chuan, Tan Hui Yi, Chong Wun Chuan, Wan Sharizatul Suraya binti Wan Muhammad Rashdi, Nurul Alia Ahmad, Carolyn Sim, Chong Yok Ki, Oliver Jonathan, Muhammad Niza bin Pawan, Shahirman Nur Zahir, Ihsan Rahim, Tan Mei Mui, Mariam Ana Ahmed, Chong Ke Kiong, Chok Kos Siong, Lim Sui Keng, Sakash Chuni, Jackson Ijumba, Nick Muhammad Faiz bin Nick Kamaruzaman, Wong Dao Min, and number 30 is Lu Shi Han. So congratulations for winning this 50 ringgit e-wallet voucher for Touch and Go. So the PAM Secretariat will get in touch with you, okay, for this voucher. Okay, last one is the winner of the Lucky Draw. Okay, the 2 prizes. Okay, so number 1 is Chu Kwai Teo, and the second one is Rebecca Pravina Arumugam. So congratulations that you will win either the branded earphone, wireless headphone worth 750 ringgit. And the second winner will win the brown toothbrush, electrical toothbrush worth 250 ringgit. So congratulations, everyone. So we have a total of 32 winners, actually. So our perhaps, who knows, in our next webinar series, we might have more lucky draws. So in order for you to win, you have to register very early. Congratulations, everyone. Okay, so before we end our session, I would like to invite architect Alvin Lim Hai Sia okay, our Vice President of Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia, to give his closing remark.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It was a very intense, a very informative, session we had. Thank you, Samuel, for a very well presented introduction into generative design. Got me interested, even though I'm a little bit past the age of playing with computer softwares now. We leave it to the youngsters. Thank you very much, Autodesk, for partnering with PAM again. We hope to see more partnership and collaborative work between PAM and Autodesk so that we can expose our membership to more newer softwares that would help us do our work. And thank you everyone in MYE and the PAM Secretariat for a very well conducted seminar. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Architect Alvin Lim. Okay, a reminder to all participants before we end our session today, do not forget, the passcode for you to claim for your CPD point. Okay, perhaps the technical team can display again. Yes, thank you. The sign-out code, okay, for you to claim your CPD points. Okay, and we also put that in the chat box, so you can actually click on the link given as well. Okay, thank you everyone, and we look forward to see you again in the coming webinar, as well as don't forget the workshop on the 19th of February 2022. Okay, goodbye and have a good day. Bye.